Well, as you can hear in the background, my neighbor's lawn service is at work. Uh, this is the time I've got for it, so no apology, just explanation. Okay, woe to them. Strong words from Jude in verse 11. He uses three illustrations from the Old Testament to talk about these people who have slipped in. They've snuck in to the fellowship of those who truly are followers of Christ. They have taken the way of Cain. We talked about that. They have rushed for profit into Balaam's error. We talked about Balaam's error, but I didn't talk at all about having rushed there for profit. There are at least two kinds of profit, and this is not profit with a PH, but profit with an F. This is about gain. And there's basically just two kinds of gain. One would be the most obvious, would be gain for financial reasons. This would be financial gain. Somehow, was it possible that they could have run, he says they have rushed into Balaam's error for the sake of financial profit? Well, it's possible. You can make money today on the internet saying some of the most outlandish and ridiculous things. The truth is, there are folks making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars just on the basis of what they tweet. It's ridiculous, but it happens. So it could be. Now, they didn't have Twitter, but one of the principles here is people will often somehow pay for novelty. And there's a chance that these people, not only did they deceitfully sneak into the fellowship and then sow seeds of error and heresy, falsehood, they did it for some form of profit. The second kind of profit has to do with relationships. It's the relational capital, so that you can become more popular and be more idolized, more idealized, and people want to be around you, want to be like you, want to be you. I don't know which of the two. I have a feeling it was probably both. But these people were not motivated by the desire to make God and his design known, to make Jesus famous, to speak on behalf of the only sovereign and Lord. He talks about that. No, that was not what they were interested in. For reasons of profit, they did what they did. Okay, and then they have been destroyed in Korah's rebellion. We talked about Korah's rebellion last time. And then he goes on and says, these people, get ready, he doesn't hold back. These people are blemishes at your love feasts. A blemish is a sore. A blemish is, well, it's what happened to a lot of us. The morning of the day when senior pictures were being taken, and there it was, a zit the size of Mount Everest right there on your chin. And there was no amount of Clearasil that was going to zap that and suck it dry in time for the picture. I don't know what girls did, but I know us guys, just did the best could and, shot the picture. Well, today, they can take care of all those blemishes. When you see the picture of an attractive person in a magazine or online advertising something, I can just guarantee that the picture's been touched up. Digitally, they can remove the zit, they can take care of the blemish. Well, these people had become blemishes at love feasts. Now, the love feast, well, is one of the most important pieces of the life and activity of the church. We have, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, but we've kind of reduced the love feast to a communion time, not even a communion service, just a little portion of our time. And it might be that I know some churches don't bother with communion at all. Other churches will have communion once a quarter or once a month or every once in a while or when they feel like they want to. And then have other churches every Sunday, and I know some churches that they offer it every time the doors are open. But it's for us, not a feast. But for the early church, they had connected the sacrifice of Christ with the loving fellowship of his family. And that's what a love feast was. But these people were blemishes at the love feasts. They eat with you without the slightest qualm. And I think you have to think about what Paul writes to the Corinthian church regarding this love feast, the celebration and remembrance of the sacrifice of Christ. He said, "Let each one of you examine himself and partake in a worthy manner," meaning you got to look into your own mirror, and when you see things that don't fit with God's character and nature and design, those things need to be addressed with sincere repentance. This is a moment that love feast would have been a time to celebrate the unity of the family of God and the love that we share and the price that was paid so that we could. And these people that Jude, it's almost a rail against, and I do not blame him. They're just eating with you without the slightest qualm. I mean, it's just like, oh, free food. Hey, I'm in. Oh, and by the way, pass me that jug of wine. And then he goes on. Shepherds who feed only themselves. That you have to live in an agrarian culture to understand what that means. I live in a part of the world where sheep are kind of a rarity. Jude lived in a part of the world where sheep are the primary, still today, primary livestock. A shepherd, one of their primary functions was to guide the sheep to adequate feeding, right? Now imagine if the shepherd, okay, I'm present, but I'm going to eat. I don't know about you guys, but I brought bread and wine and cheese and and by the way, I think I'll probably take you tonight and butcher you, and we'll have that tomorrow. That the picture of a shepherd in the Old and New Testaments is always about a sincere caregiver. This is someone who puts the needs of the flock ahead of their own. And here you have shepherds that they don't really care. This is about what I want. This is about, hey, free food, right? Boy, that's a dark, dark picture. Now, I don't have a platform to speak to celebrity preachers. But if I did, one of the things that I would say is step carefully, because you're a shepherd. And if you're sucking down a couple $100,000 a year in salary, and then probably at least that much in book royalties and other engagements and you're living the high life, don't forget, I'm not against people earning a good living. I'm not even against people earning lots of money. As pastors, I'm not against that. Well, all I'm saying is be careful, because you may forget you're the shepherd. And if your concern is feeding yourself, now that won't work. Who's our prime example? Well, who was the good shepherd? Obvious. If you've been to church for very long, you know the answer to that is the answer to almost every Sunday school question. Jesus. He's the good shepherd. And when Jesus described himself as the good shepherd, then he refines the search a little by saying, he said of himself, I'm the good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep. A good shepherd is unselfish, and the well-being and the care of the sheep are his great concern. These folks were shepherds who fed only themselves. You're not a celebrity evangelist, pastor, preacher, teacher. Neither am I. And yet, I am thoroughly convinced that whether we realize it or not, or even know who they are or not, there are people that we shepherd. We can't ever buzz past or sidestep or dodge the issue that as shepherds, we have to have the welfare of the sheep in mind. This is not negative enabling. This is not about taking responsibility for someone else's life. This is not codependency. This is genuine, authentic, honest concern for the welfare of others and doing what you can to help them become the most healthy, most effective, I hate using this word because it can be taken so much out of context, but most successful as a follower of Jesus that it is possible for them. If I'm in this for me, I'm in it for absolutely the wrong motivation. If I'm in it only for you, that's the wrong motivation. So what should my motivation be? My motivation is I am in this because of what Jesus has done for me. I'm in this because of his grace. And I want to leak that grace, and then I want to intentionally pour out grace into other people's lives. And I can't do that if my first concern is about me and what I'm going to get. I made the point. And from here on, I'd just be squeezing blood out of a turnip. Here's one last application. Pray for whoever is your preacher, minister, pastor, and ask God to protect their heart so that they can shepherd out of the purest of motives. And they can't shepherd well unless they are shepherded themselves by the Good Shepherd and his Spirit. And so it ought to be our privilege to pray for this on their behalf. See you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.